Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, PhD Pathways, Bridging Research and Industry by Jobs.ac.uk. Jobs.ac.uk is an international job board for careers in higher education, as well as a dedicated career advice source with resources, articles, and webinars to support you on your career journey. And really, we're here today to discuss specifically PhD pathways and gain a little bit of insight into how to apply your PhD to industry. First, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Carlo Harvey. I'm a professor of digital arts at the School of Digital Arts, Manchester Metropolitan University. I've had the privilege of supervising PhD researchers who've gone on to thrive in industry roles at companies like PlayStation, Siemens, Matterport, Holosphere, and even beyond academia, I've looked at supporting knowledge transfer partnerships with companies like SBS Insurance and Down Centre Wales, helping graduates and PhDs bridge their research into sort of tangible business innovation that drives the UK economy. Today I'm here because I believe that PhDs have a massive amount of value, far beyond that of just university institutions, and that the transition between academia and industry should not be necessarily seen as an exit, but as sort of a next step. So this session is showing you how to make that shift with some clarity, and hopefully whether you're a student, supervisor, or industry partner, there's something here for you today. We've also prepared a list of topics and pre-selected questions our audience have submitted before the webinar. So if you're watching live today and would like to ask us a question, please click the Q&A button on the top right-hand side of your Microsoft Teams screen and enter your question there. So I've left a little bit of time at the end to answer the pre-submitted questions, and hopefully, time permitting, those additional questions will be gone through then. So what are we going to cover today? So before we dive in, really, today is going to look at proven pathways that take PhD research beyond an institution into industry roles that create some tangible impact. We'll look at unpacking what employers are specifically looking for, not just technical skills necessarily, but soft skills like collaboration, portfolios of practice, the ability to translate insight into action. I'll share some case studies from KTPs that I've supervised, showing how doctoral researchers and graduates have embedded themselves into companies and really been hired to lead innovation within business. I want to also reflect on what happens after supervision, so how we can support researchers, not just to finish a thesis, but to launch careers. Finally, we're going to look at practical ways universities and employers can co-create more value together, so turning potentially isolated placements into more long-term partnerships. So let's start with a bit of reality check. Only about 30% of PhD graduates stay in academia long term. That's actually not failure. That's really the ecosystem working as it should do. The world beyond academia needs deep thinkers, skilled researchers like yourselves, and people who can navigate elements of uncertainty. And that's exactly what PhDs are trained to do. So bridging the gap between research and industry isn't just thinking about your employability. We also want you to consider and ensure that insights, ideas, innovations developed through doctoral study reach people, systems, and sectors that can benefit from those ideas. And that transition really isn't a detour. It's part of the value chain of the research and innovation proposition. So what I want this session to do really is just to sort of understand that bigger picture, how to plan for your transition, whether it is to stay in academia or presumably if you're here today, it's to think about how to move into industry, how to make your skills visible and really position yourself as a future leader across these different sectors. If most PhDs leave academia, which they do, we owe it to ourselves and society to do so with some purpose and impact. What are the challenges in transition for a PhD moving into a research role in business. It's not always straightforward. And it's not because PhDs aren't capable necessarily. It's often because the two worlds speak really different languages. So you might be an expert in experimental design or ethnographic methods or anything else. But if you can't explain how that solves a business problem, it might be overlooked. Some employers still hold really outdated assumptions that PhDs are too specialized, too theoretical, or lack some real world experience. And at the same time, I've got a lot of researchers talking to me and telling me they feel underrepresented or underprepared in areas like budgeting, project management, or even communication to non-academic audiences. So crucially, I think the key differentiator here is that these sectors operate in separate ecosystems. Academia is built around publications and conferences and grants, and industry is built around clients, deliverables, and commercial impact, right? The value proposition. To transition, you're going to need to make yourself visible on the other side through networks, internships, project-based work, and that fortunately are schemes and things like that to help you do that. The other thing to consider is that often industry moves at a faster pace and values really concise, outcome-driven communication. It's more about action than hedging. And so your adaptability here, as you'll learn in the course of your PhD journey, isn't really just a bonus. It's kind of a way in to exploit. So what do employers look for? When employers hire PhDs, they're obviously focusing on technical expertise and hiring for competency there, but they're also really hiring a mindset. They want people who can take a complex, really messy problem and make a good sense of it and be able to explain that. That's what critical thinking and problem solving are all about, really. You as PhDs are quick learners. You've proven that you can master new domains and synthesize ideas under pressure. And in a world where technologies and business models shift constantly, that adaptability is really gold. But technical depth isn't enough on its own. Employers want to see whether you can communicate clearly, work across teams, translate ideas into outcomes. Can you make your insights accessible to someone in marketing? Can you collaborate with people outside your discipline? And finally, employers, they really value initiatives, so the ability to lead a project, spot opportunities, challenge assumptions, and do so constructively. If you've led your research with independence and creativity, you already kind of have what many hiring managers are looking for. You just really need to make it visible to them. So some strategies for success. We've looked at challenges and what employers are looking for. Let's turn to strategies that work. So practical, proven steps you can take to strengthen your transition into industry. First, I'd really encourage you to build transferable skill sets intentionally. And this might mean that you do workshops on leadership, you do things on project management, you do things on change management or culture, or even thinking about entrepreneurships, things that potentially, when you internalize, you might realize are skills deficits to you. Think beyond just your research. Employers want people who can deliver, lead, and communicate. So with that in mind, there's a very recent paper in 2025, a Nature paper, which is called the High-Res PhD Framework, and they're incredibly helpful. So it's built from interviews with PhD graduates and employers to identify 8 essential skills and distill that even further from human and digital literacy to research insight and professionalism. You can use it as a lens to reframe your PhD journey into strengths employers understand. Really encourage you to look it up. But there are also like other schemes. So mentorship is another key lever that you might want to look to exploit. So there are schemes like the NI HR mentoring, and that offers structured support from senior academics and industry professionals. Admittedly, that's for healthcare, but there are other schemes in other disciplines. Um, and these mentorship schemes, they really help you navigate funding, leadership, cross-sector moves. So I'd really encourage you to look into mentorship schemes, but don't forget to engage with the obvious as well. So engage with the University Career Service where you are. They can help you translate your achievements into just described as business outcomes and sharpen your interview and your CV. Where possible, get hands-on experience. And I know this isn't always possible, but even short internships can open doors. So one of my PhD students, for example, did an internship at Matterport, which is a real estate built environment digital twin company, and he did that for 3 months towards the end of his PhD journey, and went to California, and they now work for Matterport, and have done a couple of really nice promotions recently. So I'm very proud of what they've managed to achieve. But you know when things or doors open for you, feel confident to walk through it. Finally, focus on visibility and your own mindset. So build networks that are beyond your field, and that's key. Collaborate on applied projects, and remember that the first job might not be in your particular niche. So be curious and prepared to be adaptable. Stay open to where your skills can actually take you. With that in mind, there are a variety of schemes that I kind of want to focus on, both in the UK and later on we'll talk about global programs. But the UK offers a rich landscape of really structured pathways that are designed to help researchers embed themselves in industry and build applied experiences and unlock potential business intelligence or impact for that company via that knowledge exchange. So the first one I'd like to talk about is called knowledge transfer partnerships, or KTPs. And they're a really effective model. They're 12 to 36 months where a graduate, often a PhD, is embedded in a company to solve a real innovation challenge, supported by both academics and industry supervisors. I, for example, overseen quite a few KTPs now, and two standouts. I won't name them, but the company they now work at is Diamond Centre Wales, and that particular associate was delivering augmented reality platforms for jewellery to have some influence over point of sale conversion. And another associate was working with SBS Insurance Services on AI classification of flooring. And both of those have gone on to be offered roles at those companies. And both demonstrated and turned academic expertise into business transformation. There were also, formerly they were called CASE, so Industrial Case Awards. And the recent evolution is Industrial Doctoral Landscape Awards, IDLAs. And these give students a fully funded 4-year experience with direct company engagement, dual supervision between academia and industry, and a strong focus on employability. These kind of pathways are ideal for bridging deep research with real-world application. And finally, in the UK, we've got these centres for doctoral training and doctoral training partnerships, and those are really niche because they have business involvement, but I think the unique selling point there is they provide a wonderful cohort-based experience. So students train in groups, learning transferable skills, and often engage with company through placements as a vehicle through the CDTs. You take these schemes on the value, they actually reflect a shift away from kind of linear academic path of just doing a PhD with a single supervisor in isolation, but towards flexible hybrid careers that blend research, creativity, and ultimately real world business impact. There are also global models, and this is worth mentioning because a lot of these also come up through jobs.ac.uk from time to time. And the reason is that the UK isn't alone in recognizing the value of connected doctoral research with industry. So globally, countries are building structured programs that embed PhDs into real-world environments and also simultaneously maintaining the academic rigor of their journeys. So France have the CIFRA program, and that enables companies to hire students with partial government funding, and those students split their time between industry and academia. Denmark have a similar thing. Candidates are formally employed by the company but remain enrolled at a university. In Canada, the MITEX program, the Accelerate program, that gives graduate students and postdocs opportunities to collaborate with industry on research, but that's differentiated in that they also support short-term sprints to multi-year innovation programs, and it's another nice proven model. And across Europe, there's 1,000 models that are mirroring this as well, like industrial doctorates and ITNs. And there's also fellowships and advanced programs. So Marie Curie, again, across Europe, offers postdoctoral fellowships. And those are a flagship in the EU that allows researchers to work across sectors and borders. It includes placements in industry and also non-academic settings, and they are highly competitive, but they're really empowering for early career researchers who want to translate the work they've done into pure impact. In the UK, we also have these UKRI Future Leaders Fellowships, and they provide long-term support for early career talent, not just to stay in academia, actually. And this is the reciprocity conversation too. So it actually supports early career researchers working within industry to work across boundaries. And these fellowships really encourage ambitious and interdisciplinary projects that can span universities, labs, and even startups. Learned societies play a really interesting role here as well. So the Royal Society have industrial fellowships, and the Royal Academy of Engineering also have industrial fellowships, and those fund mid-career academics and industrial researchers who want to spend some time in the opposite sector. So it's a two-way street. It builds trust and shared knowledge and lasting partnerships. And those tend to go on to not just focus just on the isolation of the fellowship, but actually build more long-lasting fruitous partnerships moving forward longitudinally between a university and a business. So let's be clear, university industry collaboration isn't really just to think about good PR. It delivers real two-way value for both. So companies, they can bring PhD researchers into the fold, and that injects cutting edge thinking for them. It injects fresh methods, fresh insights, fresh perspectives, and also deep problem solving capabilities into their business innovation pipelines. UKRI and Innovate UK have firms that engage with universities, and they've noticed that they are significantly more likely to develop new products, services, and processes. And the reason for that is PhD talent. It's often kind of the hub, the centrus, the critical bridge. On the university side, industry collab drives relevance. So it opens access to new live data sets with business, real world challenges, applied domains, and often leads to co-authored papers and future funding. So there is a reciprocal benefit here. Programs like KTPs and IDLA, studentships offer hard evidence. So 70% of KTP associates get job offers from the company who hosted them. Businesses report massive amounts of productivity and innovation from that. The UKRI even estimates a £7 return for every £1 invested in those partnerships. So a big economic boost. Beyond looking just at the individual successes in isolation, those relationships actually help build um, an innovation ecosystem. So they can lead to contract research, they can lead to spin-outs, they can lead to intellectual property deals, and even co-design curricula to help inform new academic frameworks internally to an institution, an academic institution. And governmental frameworks that assess universities, like the Research Excellence Framework, now recognize that explicitly too. So research impact outside academia isn't just a side effect, it's actually a metric that's been used to determine success. So I'd like to encourage you to think about what you can do. Transitioning into industry isn't passive, it's intentional. It's a strategic process. It's something that you need to take ownership of. So start by thinking of yourself not only as a job seeker, but as a high potential project that somebody would want to invest in. Assess what you've built during your PhD. Don't just think about the technical side of things and what you did, but leadership, resilience, creativity. Then ask, where do I need to grow? Maybe it's the fact that you need a little bit more business acumen. Maybe it's the fact that you need some improvement in stakeholder communication or some digital fluency. Think about projects that can benefit you, even if it's applied. Like, hey, I've got this problem here, and I've solved it in this way, but actually, this new method with AI or machine learning might be something that I can help with. So I'm going to grow my network deliberately. So reach out to alumni. Think about cross-sector events that you can attend. Stay visible. Industry often hires indirectly through relationships and recommendations. So um, it's always something to bear in mind. Most importantly, I would encourage you to sharpen your narrative. Why do you want to work in industry? How does your doctoral experience give you unique value that you can describe this to a business? And think big, right? So look at your long-term goals, and they might evolve, and they probably will evolve, but take concrete steps now that move you in the direction of those long-term goals. You know, your transition is going to begin the moment you start working on this with purpose. It's not passive. Before I want to move on to some questions, I wanted to talk about tangible impact. So not just theory, as often PhDs focus on, but in measurable outcomes. So encourage yourself to conduct research that doesn't just end in publications, but leads to other things, patents, prototypes, demos, installations, exhibits, products. Some of the most successful transitions would come when PhDs work on challenges with real-world application from day one. And this impact that you generate means influence too. It could be things like informing governmental policy. So translating your findings directly into accessible policy documents and briefs that governmental officials can use to determine how to do things. You can build decision-making frameworks or technical guidelines and help disseminate. Um, don't just do stuff, but think about how it can be applied. Those are often the outputs that drive change. So in health, education, sustainability, whatever your application is, those kind of things are the things that drive change. And this is all thriving within what the government's focusing, which is known as the triple helix model. So universities, industry, and government want to work together through shared infrastructure that attracts funding and develops talent pipelines. So many regions now have innovation clusters, creative clusters, doctoral training hubs designed specifically to facilitate this exact thing, not just to focus on startups or tech transfer, but to think about society and economic value. So I want to move into the questions now, and I've got four pre-submitted questions, and I'll look at the Q&A as well in case there are any questions submitted by the audience. And the questions that we got were the following. So I'll start with the first one. How can one gain more industrial experience whilst doing a PhD? And that's a crucial question. Fortunately, there are more pathways than ever before. So if you are doing your PhD and you're in a doctoral training partnership or a centre for doctoral training, make the most of their structured internships or placement offers. These can lead to 3-month secondments with industry or public sector partners. And indeed, a lot of institutions like Meta and Microsoft offer placements for doctoral students to apply to. Look out for them. If you're in a more traditional PhD, do take the initiative. So reach out to companies aligned with your research and propose a short-term collaboration or an internship with them. Think about getting involved in consultancy style projects or hackathons or challenge-led innovation events within your university. So many universities run these in partnerships with industry, and industry are unsurprisingly using those as a scouting method. After your PhD, you could also look into knowledge transfer partnerships and apply to be an associate on one. It's a formal, structured way to embed yourself into a company on a 12 to 36-month project that delivers real business value and often leads into an employment opportunity off the back of it. And also, you are still rooted in academia, so it could go vice versa if needs be, because it is a partnership. Probably finally, to answer this question, don't underestimate the potential for invisible industry exposure. So attend conferences, shadow alumni, get a business mentor via University Career Service or with schemes like VTI, for example. These can open doors and even open doors to industrial projects. Next up, how about the reverse from industry back to research? And that's a really interesting question, really insightful too. It's entirely possible, and in fact, increasingly common to see people move from industry into academia. Whether it's a return to academia or moving into applied research in universities, the key you'll want to address is reframing your industry experience as an asset. So you'll want to demonstrate that you bring real world problem solving, product focus, innovation experience, especially if you can show how your work generated impact, because these are more and more becoming metrics by which we're assessing productivity within universities too. So you can look at industry-facing fellowships like the Future Leaders scheme, the Future Leaders Fellowship scheme I mentioned, or the Royal Society Industry Fellowships, or the Marie Curie Actions, and those support transitions in both directions, from academia to industry and from industry and into academia. You can engage with universities via adjunct roles, right? So you can do research collaborations on projects, or you can partner on a bid opportunity to a research council. You can even co-supervise PhDs. And this keeps you really close, if you are based in industry, to the academic ecosystem. Remember really that applied research and translational science are increasingly prioritized by funding bodies. So your experience, if you do come from an industry background, really aligns well with interdisciplinarily impact-focused research agendas, which are the flavor of the month at the moment. Your insider view of industry needs is a real strategic advantage. The next question we got was, how can I keep my skills relevant in the current situation where technology changes so fast? This is a great question. And it's the reality of dynamic tech-driven world, right? Tech drives and changes so fast that you can feel that you become anachronistic really quickly. The most successful PhDs are adaptive learners. So I would encourage a strategy that effectively focuses on micro-learning, cross-pollination, and learn by doing. So don't wait just for formal training. Build a habit of regularly upskilling. So I, for example, often find myself doing things like LinkedIn Learning or finding a new technique in Unreal Engine's Epic Games and learning about Lumen or Nanite or Chaos, all right? Because these are new things that you have to keep up to date with. So there are platforms that do this for you and offer like lots of free opportunity to sort of skill where you identify a skills gap potentially, like Coursera, edX. Industry webinars help as well, and they let you top up your skills in areas like data science, AI, business strategy, and Microsoft and NVIDIA are pushing a lot of new free skills training around deep learning, for example. So minimal time investment just to keep yourself continually updated and thinking about continuous micro learning. Cross-pollination. So stay plugged into trends beyond your discipline. Don't just focus on your own niche area. Think about following industry thought leaders, read trade journals, attend interdisciplinary meetups, because staying versatile is your edge. And actually, often the people who are interdisciplinary are often prioritized over others because they have the ability to be communicative across disciplines. And lastly, my point was learn by doing. So um, look at emerging tools or methods in your research. So example is if machine learning is relevant to your field, try integrating it into your analysis workflow. This makes your skills up to date and allows you to be thinking about applied nature of your research and thinking about innovation across discipline. So this really showcases a growth mindset, and employers love PhDs who are really hungry to evolve and not just experts in a narrow niche. And the last pre-submitted question is how to translate your skills that you gained during your research to an industry CV. Um, this is where many brilliant researchers struggle, but there is a it is solvable with a shift in lens and a little bit of wordsmithing. So the trick really is to just stop describing what you did and focus on how that experience created value, especially in a business relevant way. So, for example, don't say I conducted a literature review. You could say something like I have synthesized complex information to advise decision making. You don't have to say things like I ran experiments for X. You say I've designed and executed data-driven investigations to optimize business performance or intelligence. Highlight your project management skills. So managing a PhD is a really long-term journey. It's a cross-functional project with many stakeholders, and you would be very surprised about the skills that you pick up in that journey. Think about your soft skills. So writing papers is communication. If you work and collaborate across labs in your institution or even outside of institutions, that's teamwork. If you teach during the course of your PhD journey, that's stakeholder engagement. So think about how what you've done translates into skills that are important. Think about the skills that you've got for your CV. Tailor it to the job, obviously. Match every job description with specific phrases and examples from your PhD. If you've published, present it as thought leadership. Or even evidence-based problem solving, not just academic outputs as a paper is typically conceived as. Think of your PhD as a training in analytical thinking. It's problem solving and it's resilience, and these are all qualities that every employer needs. Okay, so I'm going to try and look at the Q&A now. So we've got a question which says, my PhD program did not come back. My PhD program did not include any formal internship or industrial placement. How can I best justify or compensate for that when applying to industry positions? So, if you don't have one as part of the journey, that's not to say that you couldn't potentially still look for one. So, I think that there is potential for that still. But even if you haven't found one, um, I wouldn't directly be acknowledging it or justifying it or compensating it proactively, but I would certainly think about, the things that you did in that process to give yourself the opportunity to work in industry during the course of your PhD. So that might be things like mentorship schemes or things like that. So you can certainly say, these are the things that I went for, I wasn't successful, and you can be proactive in that way. One issue, sorry, this is a new question. One issue I'm having is knowing exactly how to approach building skills for industry when conducting research, which is fundamentally speculative and future orientated. Mine rests on technology, which hasn't yet transcended niche use cases and become widely profitable. I'm trying to make contributions to this shift. I have high confidence in my research's commercial potential. This is fundamental to its teleology. I am actively building commercial skills, which I anticipate will become relevant, and I try to keep my finger on the pulse, but it's difficult to conceptualize, navigate a scattered, emerging landscape from the outside, especially when I'm not just focusing on one industry or type of role company. What do you think is the best mindset, practical approach in these sorts of cases? So you have high confidence in your researcher's potential, but it's not necessarily transcended niche use cases and become widely profitable. But you're trying to make contributions to this shift. Okay. So here I would start to think about Innovate UK schemes. So Innovate UK schemes are often focused on embryonic work at specific technology readiness levels, like 1, 2, 3, blue sky research, potentially 4, 5, 6, evolving into something that could be profitable and product facing, and then 7, 8, 9. And those are sort of technology readiness levels that move towards productization and commercial viability. And Innovate will happily fund projects in those niche spaces to help accelerate their business potential. So I would certainly look as you come towards the end of your journey, looking to Innovate UK, maybe as a spin out of as part of the university through their commercialization or enterprise schemes, and think about how you could secure funding to help accelerate your ambitions there. Question Next question. What trends do you think we'll see in future PhD programs? As you mentioned, from just doing a PhD at university, we have DTCs and Centre for Doctoral Trainings. What do you think future PhD programs may look like in 10 years' time? It's a really interesting question. I actually think they'll move more towards this model, especially as the UK is now sort of um, and other global economies have focused very much on growth and growth mindsets. See that the government really focusing on the triple helix model of government and policy being informed by partnerships between industry and academia and co-creating knowledge and value. And so it would surprise me if traditional PhDs were prevalent in the same way they are today. And I think we'll move to more uh, CDTs and DTPs and IDLA models where industry is involved in co-creating that knowledge, um, so that the value proposition of embedding into business is part of the journey. So next question is, uh, and then I think we have to move on because we're running out of time. But the next question is, whilst I'm nearing the end of my time as a mature part-time PhD candidate, I've been looking for a new part-time job. However, despite my extensive and varied industry experience, as well as having 2 degrees, it's taken me a year to find a role. A friend told me that he knew someone who had completed their PhD and believed that detailing this in their CV put employers off, as it made them slightly intimidated. What are your thoughts and experience on this, please? Um, yeah, I suppose positioning it is quite challenging if there is a perception. Obviously, I'm not familiar with your field or where your applied PhD might exist, but certainly speaking from the enterprises that I work across, which tends to be creative industries and science and engineering, a PhD is a highly valued skill set with the right sets of employers. The job market is really challenging at the moment, but certainly, for example, if you were to apply to be a part-time KTP associate and knowledge transfer partnership associate, as you transition more into the end part of your part-time PhD, a PhD would certainly be something that would be valued and perceived strongly because of those critical analysis and deep thinking skills that you developed over the course of your journey. I understand the perspective, and I suppose it's probably field specific, maybe. Um, but I would always be proud of what you've achieved, what you've accomplished, and the skills that you've inherited, and frame them in the right way. Hey, I'm going to have to move on into concluding the webinar because we're coming up to the end of time now. So to wrap up, I want to take just 30 seconds to provide an insight or tip from today's session. So at a time when the UK and other global economies are really doubling down on drivers for growth, PhDs, they're not just a luxury, they're actually a national asset. So you're trained to navigate complexity, drive breakthroughs, build what doesn't exist yet. Policies like the UK Innovation Strategy, the Creative Industry Sector Vision, the Science Technology Framework, these are all governmental calls for deeper university and industry collaboration. They are motivated to fuel economic growth, and this is really your moment as PhD students. So step beyond, translate your impact, and help shape the UK's future economy. The future really belongs to researchers like yourselves who can translate your skills that you've developed with passion and tears into action. Lastly, I just want to say stay connected. So the recording of this webinar will be available and it's shared through a follow-up email from the team at jobs.ac.uk. And it'll also be posted onto their career advice section on the jobs.ac.uk website. So if you'd like to recap on any of the topics covered or share it with your network, please do so. Visit jobs.ac.uk and follow social media. On behalf of the team at Jobs.ac, I'd like to thank you for watching. We hope that you find the information that we shared today helpful, and goodbye. Have a good rest of your week.